We had some breaking news we released here on Track World News. Always great to be a part of that. But Favour Ashe of Auburn right now officially entering the transfer portal, saying he's taken his talents to another school to be determined. We released that, and if you check on our post on Instagram, the comment section's going crazy with people throwing up the lions emojis, dogs, gators, all that stuff. Every school under the sun is being shouted out there. And some background on Favour, like what is this guy? What caliber is this dude? 994, 100-meter runner, 6'5", 160-meter runner, national champion in the 60, three-time final or medalist in the 100-meter at NCAAs. Just an absolute talent when it comes to this track and field stuff. Like, this is, I would say, we don't have like star recruits in track and field, but if there were, Favour is a 5-star recruit that's transferring. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Favour, somebody that I've seen in the collegiate circuit for years be at the top. Even I think from his freshman year, he was at the top of the game. So I could tell he had problems, not problems, because he's been a finalist tons of times, but not necessarily winning that 100-meter outdoor. I think that's like the highly coveted thing that he's looking to do. I'm sure that's probably going into why he's transferring, but this is the top dog. This is the Travis Hunter. This is the the number one pick here in the transfer portal. So wherever he goes is going to definitely make a big change in the NCAA. So hopefully he goes to LSU. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, this is interesting because we talked about this, what was it, like 2 weeks ago when we saw that Justin Braun was in the portal, like during the season. Like, we don't usually see this where, I mean, at this point, the track season, like, people have ran collegiate leading times already. Like, the season is in full swing, and we're now seeing the biggest name that there really could not be much of a bigger name to transfer, like, entering the portal now. Like, what do you think might be changing as to why we're seeing this, or why do you think this is happening now instead of him entering the portal at the end of last year or maybe before the season? I mean, I'm not too sure I can't remember what the time frames are for when you can enter, but why do you think we're seeing this now?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a variety of things, but I mean, for somebody that's transferring in the middle of the year, it's got to be about capitalizing on the end of their eligibility. Like, oh, I don't trust this coach's program. I don't trust the program in itself, where we're headed. I got to make this change now because I only have one more season left, or I only have two more seasons left. So it's probably best for these athletes in their heads to get out of that situation ASAP. So like you said, I mean, when I was in college still, it was kind of unprecedented for people to transfer in the middle of the year. But I mean, it's becoming more and more common, man. You got the big hitters doing it, and there's some smaller guys doing it too. So, we'll see what type of effect that has and how successful they are in these new programs. But yeah, maybe Favour Ashe is a new trailblazer.
Yeah, it was shocking to me to see that was coming through. And I mean, I know that Auburn isn't known for sprinting, I guess you would say, necessarily, but they have a pretty, I mean, their head coach of Burrell. I think Burrell's still there, right, Leroy? So it's like, they've got a guy who's just coming from Houston that, obviously, they're known for their sprinting capabilities over there at Houston. And so it's interesting to see where they're not, that he's leaving. So I'm wondering, there's a couple of reasons I guess you could see. Like, one, like maybe you don't see a great fit from a coaching standpoint, and it's just like you want a new person to be coaching you. Two, it could be I don't know, maybe socially there's stuff going on behind the scenes that it's like, who knows what's going on behind the scenes, where it's like, hey, this just isn't a good fit for me socially. And then maybe that third one, and I'm curious on your opinion if you think this is taken into consideration, but NIL now is like massive. And is it like, I don't know where it was when you were in college for track athletes, but I know obviously with football, we're seeing colleges and give millions of dollars to football players. Now, track and field is nowhere near that right now. obviously. We're not even close. But do you think that that is playing a factor nowadays with someone that is this big where NIL is finally getting to these athletes, or is it not? Do you not think it's impacting just yet?
With track and field, I don't think it's too impactful unless you're like, you know, a high schooler coming out with 100,000 followers already. Then I think you'll be more attractive in the NIL space. But just for just a regular athlete that's running fast times, I don't think that NIL would have much of an influence. Now, I don't know. You know, maybe the University of Arkansas has a $2 million NIL pool for their track athletes. You never really know with these programs, but I wouldn't count it out. Let's say that. But there's actually one more thing that might have played influence in him transferring. Like, what if he got kicked out? What if he got kicked off the team? You know, like I don't want to say like speak that negativity on him, but that's also a thing. Like I've been on multiple college teams where men, women, they might break a team rule and that's it. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of different factors that could go into this. But on the other side of it, we're just wishing him the best that he can succeed because he's a fun athlete to watch. And he was one of my picks last year. I thought I might have taken him to win the NCAA in the 100. So whatever the reason is, I just hope that the outcome is good, is positive.
Yeah, the Nigerian Nightmare, definitely the best nickname in track right now. That's a pretty cold nickname. That's a pretty cold nickname.
Yeah, that's fire. That's fire.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean that could definitely be a factor. I mean, we didn't talk about it too much, and I won't go into it because I don't have the full story. But there was the incident that that he had, I guess, right before during the indoor season of he ran into some trouble. And so maybe that played a factor of, the coaching staff of being like, like, we don't know if we want this on the team. I'm not sure. So yeah, that definitely could be, a thing. I'm just like, hey, this is no longer a right fit for us, whether it's on the team side or it's on the athlete side. But with that being said, now where do we think he'll go? Okay, so we got to get three from you because we know what one of them is going to be. We know you're going to say LSU. So I guess what ones do you think he'll go to? What schools would you like to see him at? And like, what's the reason why behind it that you think they may go to, a certain place?
Yeah, if you want a safe bet as a sprinter in college, Florida's always going to be a safe bet, right? So University of Florida, I think, is one. A school that always has money and is throwing money at athletes is the University of Arkansas, still in the SEC, still a very competitive school. I think they'll be in contention. And then obviously LSU is probably the most highly touted, historically rich university when it comes to sprints and also when it comes to marketing, because we all know like the LSU track and field page does a really good job of pushing and promoting their athletes. So those three are probably the hottest three. And then if I had to throw a wild card in there, I'd probably put the University of Tennessee with
well, he came from there originally. You think he's going to go back?
Oh shit! So I don't think he was there with the new regime though. Was he there with with
this
Ross?
Would be a new with Ross. I think he was there the very last year. Like his last year, I can't remember the timing. He was either there for like his last year was Ross or he transferred out right after Ross. I can't remember, but
so something like
maybe go back to Tennessee.
Maybe.
For me, I think you hit the nail on the head with some of the top dogs. I mean, Florida, that would be like they would be getting two of the biggest sprinting transfers that we've seen with Justin and with Favour. So that would be pretty huge. And who knows, maybe they do have some of that money still, available.
Mm-hmm.
One that you didn't mention that I got to go through would be Florida State. We've seen Florida State get some really big transfers over the years. They've had a couple big guys. So I think that we could see Florida State potentially being one that's going to do well. And then another one that I'll go through that wasn't mentioned. I'd say Alabama. I'm thinking Alabama, with Taurus or Tarsus. Tarsus, yeah. I think that would be a potential, good one of like, hey, you have a really good training partner that you'd be going alongside. I could see that going well. And then if I'm saying a wild card where I don't think that it'll happen, but man, I would love to see this 4x1. I'd say USC. Um, I'd really want to see because Makai Williams is coming back, and he's with USC. I love Makai. I think he's an awesome guy. And so I want to see him and Favour on that same 4x1. Bro, that would be deadly. Having 2 9, 9, 9, 8 guys on the same 4x1. I don't know who the other two people are because they graduated. Johnny, I think, last year. But I think that would be my who could we potentially see out there? So
that would actually be a really, really interesting 4x1 and team in general out there with Coach Watts. That's not a bad pick to be a wild card for sure.
There you go. We'll have to see. It's gonna be a lot. I'm sure there's a ton of people in the DMs. I mean, break it down for what it was like for you and for the people watching. What is he what's he going through right now? What's it like? I'm sure it's probably like you like that Instagram model who you took all your pictures of your boyfriend off of Instagram. So I'm sure you got you got all the guys coming after you, man. It's like, well, wait a minute. This photo ain't there anymore. You got people in the DMs. What's that like right now? What's he going through at this moment?
Yeah, man. I mean, I can only speak on my experience with transferring, and I wasn't nearly at the prowess that Favour is right now. But I remember the moment I entered the portal, I was in Akron and I drove home. I drove back to New York, and on my way there, I must have got about like 10 phone calls, tons of emails, tons of DMs from every school. Coaches just really glazing you for real, like trying to say anything they can to get you on their team. So if Favour, you watching this right now, bro, don't take the rat poisoning. That's what I call it, is rat poisoning. So they're definitely gonna call. I'm sure his phone is ringing off the hook right now. And it's probably like that was probably the most hectic time for me as a collegiate athlete, was my time during in the transfer portal, because you get a lot of proposals, a lot of things that sound really, really good from tons of universities, every college that you probably could have ever dreamed of going to. You know what I mean? So for him, I mean, he already did the transfer thing once, so I'm sure he's a little accustomed to it, but it can get crazy for sure.
Is that I mean, that's got to be like, so what do you mean by like the rat poison of things? Like, so people just telling you what you want to hear? Like, well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, these coaches are going to talk to you like your shit don't stink, right? Like, oh, we need you. We love to have you here. We got all this money for you. And then as time goes on, you'll kind of see that those are false promises. They can't really follow up on what they're talking about and what they're promising to you. So you kind of got to really be particular with who you talk to and who you give your time to, because the school I ended up going to, LSU, they probably promised me the least. They were like, look, man, you know what we're all about. We got this much money for you. If you want to come on a visit, that's great. If not, that's cool too. But we want you here, and we think we can get you better, right? So that, for me, that's all I wanted to hear. But I was a couple other schools, actually Alabama, right? You know what I mean? Alabama told me, they called me on the phone. They said, we got X amount of money for you, right? And it was like an absolute max scholarship, more money than every other school was offering for me. So I started kind of like cutting everybody off. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to go to Alabama. It's gonna be cool. And maybe a day or two before I was gonna sign, they called me. They was like, okay, we got this much money for you now. And it was less than a third than what they had initially told me, right? Actually, I'll just say the numbers. I remember they was like, we'll give you a full scholarship and you'll get $1,900 a month for living allowance. And I'm like, oh shit, like that's fire, bro. Let's get it. And then when they called me back, it was like, we got like 450 for you a month for living allowance. I was like, whoa, like you can't flip the script like that. And honestly, like if you told me 450 from the jump, I still might have considered coming here. But it's just the fact that you went back and reneged on your word. So it's just a lot of tomfoolery, let's say. You know what I mean? A lot of tomfoolery, a lot of bullshit going on with that stuff. So like I said, that's what the rat poisoning would look like.
Dang, that's wild. Like, so they similar like scholarship, but the living allowance are like, hey, we're changing this up on you. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so I could imagine that there's probably a lot of that sort of stuff of just like, hey, we giving you whatever it is, and just
Yeah.
hoping that you don't change. So was anyone, because if you said that you kind of cut everyone off when you were going and looking at Bama, so then were any of the schools like kind of like, nah, you haven't talked to us for the last 2 weeks or whatever, like we don't want you anymore, because they like maybe they noticed you were giving them, like you weren't talking to them as much, or was that not really a problem and people were still interested anyway?
I think the only school that really kind of played their hand similar to that was USC. I remember they were on the fence between me and another athlete, a distance athlete. I don't remember his name, but they were like, "Hey, you got to give us an answer by like Friday, and if you don't, we're gonna go the other direction." And I was like, "Okay, I mean, you're not gonna pressure me to sign fast, so I'm gonna still take my time. If you want to go that route, go that route." But obviously, it still ended up working in my favor, not so much in theirs. But that's neither here nor there, bro. But yeah, like coaches, they're gonna try their negotiation tactics and whatever they can, because at the end of the day, like you as an athlete, you're an asset to them. Like I know we need them as well as athletes to have a platform and to pursue a degree. But for these coaches to keep their jobs, especially at these big universities, they need to win, they need to compete, and they need to assemble the best team that they can. So if you're an athlete like a Favor, like a Braun, you kind of got to understand that, like understand how valuable of an asset you will be to this university, and that they sometimes need you more than you need them, and just using that power to your advantage, using that leverage to your advantage. I think that's something that I did pretty well. Like I didn't let a coach or a program kind of bitch me or hold me in one way or another. You know what I mean? I kind of stood my ground and understood like I'm gonna come and make your team better. So that's kind of the cards that you got to play.
That's some good spitting game, some insight. I didn't know that was the whole how the whole thing would go down. So yeah, I can imagine like coming in as the guy right now too, of like that, take all of that, and then it's like I'm sure there's so much just like deception or just like things that'll change on you, especially like with this being in the season where a lot of the money's probably already been allocated. So they're trying to do tricks of like, oh, maybe like, can we take it from here, take it from there? Or, hey, we can't give you scholarship for the first half of this first semester, but we can give you, NIL. And then, but that's not guaranteed. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's probably a lot of stuff. And like, I'm seeing it, especially if you're just doing it on your own. Like, it's not like in the pros where you got like an agent for you. Like, you were this was just you and your family that was going through this transfer stuff. Like, or did you have anyone like there to help you with going through it?
Nah, it was just me, bro. It was just me. I mean, nobody in my life had ever been in my shoes, because I transferred the first year that the transfer portal was a thing. So like, no, I was really no guidance. You know what I mean? I just tried to play it like a businessman would play it. That was kind of my mindset. But and when you spoke on that with schools not necessarily having scholarship money, and speaking on like, oh, we'll give you NIL, and that's really a thing, bro. Like I actually know a couple people that communicated these problems to me at a couple different universities, where they said, okay, we don't have scholarship money, but we'll give you the same amount in NIL. They sign, and then there's no NIL. They're having to take out loans. They're having to do all this unnecessary stuff, all because the coach was a little bit shady, moving a little bit funny. And it happens, man. It's a shady business, unfortunately. So I don't think Favor's gonna have to worry about that, though, to be honest.
Yeah, now he'll probably be straight. I'm sure he's getting the max, the 1 year max contract, whatever that's going to be. Like, it's going to be, hey, can I get you, how can I, maybe it's 10, it's some crazy numbers, I'm sure. But exciting. We'll see where he's going to end up. But crazy stuff. So if anyone wants to drop game, any athletes that are transferring, and you let us know, hey, estimated NIL of this amount, let me know. We'll spit some game, reset the market, help get you guys some more money. So we'll be like the NBA here. So because we can't do that with contracts in track, unfortunately. So help us with NIL. Be like, oh, breaking news, $50,000 in NIL. Who knows? We'll let you know.
Hey, but aren't you the first one to break the Favour Ashe news?
Yeah, that was exciting. So like being the first one to break that, like that's what I get excited about, of like being able to do these things and hopefully become a a group that people want to come through and connect with and building relationships with and talk to and there's a lot of like, that's an interesting thing about being in this track media space. And I'm sure we can talk about it a lot in another episode too, of like the relationships are so important. Like there's a lot of news and insight and things that I know that we don't share with people because the timing isn't right. The athlete may not, the relationship's important. Like there's a lot of things. We were talking a little while ago, about some stuff like, and so it's just like, and so connecting with them and connecting with people that are involved in a lot of these situations of just like hey, what's the timing? How can we help each other? What's the news? What do we do? How do we roll this out? Like I've been lucky enough to work with a good amount of athletes as they go through it. Not you, Noah. You didn't tell me when you were going pro. So I had to figure that crap out on my own. But outside of that, we've been able to work well with a lot of these college athletes. So any college athletes and anybody that's working, like I definitely want to help you guys, tell your story and break your news and share that stuff with you. So it's cool, man.
For sure. We're gonna start calling you the Adam Schefter of the track and field world, bro.